Now, we've created a lot of different kinds of swatches, seen how to apply and update. Now, let's go back to the swatches panel and make sure we understand what's going on here, because if you scroll up and down, my goodness, we have a lot of swatches, a lot of options. So first, let's take a look at all of these icons here on the right columns and make sure we understand what they mean. This 4-color swatch here, this cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, that just indicates that swatch has been defined in the CMYK color space. Now, these icons here that just look kind of like a gray color field, those are process swatches. That is a mix of all 4 plates. And then if you see this little icon here that looks kind of like a spot, well, that's a spot color. Now, everything that we've seen so far is in the default view mode, but there are other viewing options. Come up here to the flyout menu. You can also see a small name view, so if you have lots and lots of swatches, you might prefer this. Just makes the icon smaller and you can still see the names. If you would prefer to depend just on the swatch preview, you can turn on small swatches, and we also have really large swatches. So just different ways to look at the same content. Let's go ahead and go back to the name view and take a peek down here at the bottom, because we also have some filters. This first option says, show me all the swatches. That's what we're looking at now. The second option says, show me just the color swatches. So these are just the colors, just the solid fill colors. The third option says, show me just the gradients. So if you have a couple of gradient swatches intermingled with a whole bunch of solid color swatches, this is an easy way to filter just those options. I'll switch back to show all swatches so we can see everything that we're working with. Now, as if we didn't have enough swatches in this document already, you know what? We can add more. And it's actually an important thing to understand, because it's really crucial when multiple people are collaborating on a project or a publication that they're all using the same swatches for the sake of consistency. So with that in mind, let's go back to the panel menu. Again, we hide all the cool features here in the panel menu. Let's go down to Load Swatches. Now let's navigate to Lesson 4 of Part 2 of the project files and find the InDesign file called Swatch Source, so we can actually load swatches from one InDesign document to another. So somebody might set up a document as a template, load it up with all the colors that you're going to use, including your spot colors and so on, and then share those this way. So we'll load the swatches from this file just by clicking Open. Now when we scroll up and down this list, my goodness, lots and lots of options. So at this point, you might argue that I've gone a little overboard, but I do want you to understand how to share that content. So let's scroll back up here to the top and now talk a little bit about deleting swatches. So if we scroll down until we find this rainbow gradient swatch, make sure it's selected and then hit the trash can icon to see what happens. Let's try to delete that swatch. And InDesign says, sure, you can delete that swatch, but I'm going to swap it out with something else. So let's replace it with the gray ramp swatch. You could replace it with an unnamed swatch, but I just don't really see the point. Make sure you remap it to the gray ramp and click OK. So the rainbow swatch is gone. Some folks think that that's probably for the better, and it's now replaced with the gray ramp swatch. Now, that was just deleting a single swatch. So if I grab the Pantone swatch, let's undo that. I didn't want to actually apply that change. But if I just grab that swatch and drag it to the trash can, that will delete that swatch without any protest from InDesign because it's not being used. So wouldn't it be a good idea to delete all of the unused swatches without doing them all by hand? Well, that's also easy. Go ahead up here to the panel menu and choose Select All Unused. That will highlight all of our unused swatches, which is, my goodness, so many of them. And when those are selected, go ahead and just click the trash icon. Away they go, and you see in the end that we're really just using black, 2 shades of blue, and this grayscale swatch. So now that we have our swatches trimmed down to just the ones we're using, there's another way to share swatches not just between 2 InDesign documents, but between Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. For example, if I just wanted to share these 2 swatches, these 2 blue swatches, I could grab those, go to the panel menu, and choose Save Swatches. Again, we can go back to the Lesson 4 folder of Part 2. We could just save these as colors, that's as good a name as any, and ASE is the file extension. That stands for Adobe Swatch Exchange, that allows multiple Adobe applications to share the same swatch format. When you're ready, go ahead and click Save. So we've saved those files out. They're ready for other folks to use them. And the last thing that we'll look at very briefly is the Separations Preview palette. We'll access this palette by going to the Window menu, choosing Output, and opening up Separations Preview. Now this is a pretty advanced topic. We'll just spend a couple of moments on it. Let's slide this over and turn Separations Preview on to Separations. We'll stretch the palette out a little bit so that you can see everything that's going on here. And the Separations Preview panel lets you see what's going on in terms of how the file is built up in colors. So with a single click, I can toggle off all of the CMYK separations and just see where this blue Pantone color is going to print. I can individually build this up. For example, I can see how the magenta and yellow are going to combine here, as well as the cyan. And maybe I want to see just black. What is just printing in black? In this case, the text and a good bit of this photograph down here. That makes good sense. So you might not understand everything that's happening here initially, but just remember that the Separations Preview panel is a really convenient way to see how the colors and swatches that you've used affect the printing process. So if you get here and you see CMYK and maybe another dozen Pantone swatches, you're in trouble. Make sure you trim that down, communicate with your printer, and you'll be good to go.